Count money, man. Stack riches. Try and told him I'm a beast, bud.
What's up, gang? Welcome back to another episode of the Grindcast. Get ready. It's a new day, and we have a two special guests today. We have my partner in business, Matt Diolis, and then head coach of Pine Richland, Coach John LaDon. Am I pronouncing it the right way?
Yes, sir. That's
John LaDon came right in. This should be special. We got people of all different walks of life spread out the country that listen to this, but this should be a good one for leadership stuff. Coach was in his first year last year at Pine Richland, 2022 season, WPIAL champions and also state champions, which we'll dig into a little bit, which is what's special about that. If anybody that recognizes leadership in sports knows the job that had to be done in the locker room, in the kids' hearts, minds, to start out 1-3 and then run the table and win a state championship in a very good state and powerhouse, division first year, which is super rare for that to happen. Comes out of Penn Hills, right? I think you went to school, or no, you went Aliquippa, right? And then you were coaching at Penn Hills. Yes, and Penn Hills had a record of 46-14.
You know where he got to start coaching?
Not a KO.
Keystone?
Not a KO.
I can't not
a KO.
My
okay.
Eagles.
All right.
He was KO.
I think, 2006 time frame there about with Coach Cam Barris.
He's the man.
Love
Cam
it.
Barris was my.
I didn't know that till you said it.
He was my gym coach.
Okay.
Senior year. I had a gym teacher, awesome guy. Yeah, he started at KO.
And then 5 years, over 5 seasons at Penn Hills.
Penn Hills, yes, sir.
Were you the head coach the whole time there?
I spent 3 years before that at Shaler, which was a grind.
Okay.
But here now at Pine Richland where we live and excited.
So just well decorated. Penn Hills won the conference a couple different times, won a state title there also, right?
Yes,
how many
sir.
states?
16-0 there. So
16-0. That's difficult. We 16. Went my senior year in high school. We won a state championship. Went 14-1, and lost to, at the time, if you look at the records, worst team in our conference. I mean, we beat teams that were ranked in the nation. So that's special to keep everybody locked in.
15-1 senior year football, lost in the state championship, and then went and lost in the state championship in basketball too senior year. So, man, that's tough. Yes,
powerhouses at Aliquippa. I'm bummed out. I know they're playing. Is it this upcoming week? They're going to be playing at Steelers Stadium. I still can't get accustomed to Acrisure. But I think they're playing down there. I got invite from a friend to come down there, and I like watching. I've been to a couple games at Aliquippa. And so you've been coaching since 2007.
Thereabout, yes.
Right? Somewhere around there. And then so in college you played Robert Morris, right? Linebacker, defensive captain, 3 years as a defensive captain, is
yes,
that right?
Sir. I started all 4 years. Came in as a freshman, was out there early. Working with the coaches in May and June, and got the opportunity to get on the field first game as a freshman, and went from there and just kept climbing the ladder.
So defensive player your senior year, that alone says a lot about you from a leadership standpoint. I was a captain in high school, captain in college, 1 year. So to do it 3 years, they're not just giving they're not giving somebody the title of captain, especially unless you're a quarterback or something like that. Just very rare. Just so, for the listeners that don't understand, you don't end up as a defensive captain 3 years in a row unless you're doing something special, not just physically, but something special got to be going from a leadership standpoint. Speaking of leadership, you're a husband and a father of
three.
Yes, sir. Okay. You got boys, girls?
2 girls and a boy.
Two girls and a boy, and I heard your boy's a monster.
Yeah,
that's the word on the street.
He's been around the game since he was, born. Been on the sideline since he was a year old. Knows how to go about business. Been around winning programs, so he knows what he needs to do. So just excited to watch him grow and develop over these next 8-10 years.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Two girls, McKenna and Mia, two basketball all-stars.
And I mean, same thing. They've been around.
And I think your wife's cheerleading coach.
Maggie, yep.
Yeah, coach of cheerleading. She was a Division I softball player in college. So,
Oh.
she understands.
You got it. The kids are getting it from both sides.
Mia, McKenna, and Marco.
All
Okay.
M's.
She got the M's?
Okay.
Yeah,
We
so,
couldn't sneak no
you know,
J's. No.
but understands the grind and what it means to be committed to a program. So been
That's
very
key.
blessed.
I think
Been very blessed.
that's critical. You know, when you mentioned that this is the Grindcast studio, so I love that you're mentioning the grind. And you know, I know Maddie's been on the grind now, coaching over there. He could tell you I love the game so much. You know, my son's 5. I come to their practices just to be around. You know what I mean? I miss the game so much, but I know the grind. You know, as a coach, I know the influence. You know, as a coach, as a head coach, you end up being a father. You know, to a lot of these kids at a pivotal moment. You know, of their life. You mentioned, you know, you were at KO, you were at Shaler, you know, eventually before the Penn Hills and all that. So there's a process that comes before the state championships and the titles and all that stuff. And I know part of that process is, you know, it's not always, you know, the best paid job, because I know that you're working. I know the amount of, if you're winning at that level, I know the amount of hours, you know, from team building, you know, extra stuff with the players, to film and the work that goes into it. You know, it's how did you get through the process of that grind? You know, the schedule and everything, the building up of it before you became a head coach, having your wife stick behind the vision, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah,
Talk to us about that.
Kind of all I've ever known, you know. It started at a young age, the preparation that goes into everything, even at the youth level like these guys are going through now. I mean, when I played youth at Aliquippa, we went away for camp. So, like the big team, we went away for a week of camp, and just seeing the preparation. I had some great coaches in high school. You know, we spent a lot of hours after practice outside of the weight room, in the meeting room.
In season, what's the hours look like, you think? I mean, if you had to, you probably don't count because you love it.
Yeah,
but if you had to count, what do you think hours we're putting in a week?
We're putting in probably 5-6 hours a day during the week, and then weekends probably. I mean, I try to take Saturdays off for the family and then do all my stuff on Sundays, but Sundays could be an 8-10 hour day just in film breakdown, preparation, tendencies, all that good stuff. But, you know, I involved the family in it too. So Sunday nights we'll go through and run through the stats again, and my daughter and my son will
get everybody
track the stats
involved
for us. Yeah, for sure.
Blend it.
So
right? We say in the process of building, sometimes it's not quite always the exact word balance, but blend it together. It becomes, this is the family business. You know, we're all in it. We're all in it together.
There's no doubt about it. And it's like, hey, being so close now, I tell the family, like, hey, got to run up to the stadium real quick. Hop in the car. We go to the stadium, bang out a half-hour work up there, and then back to the house, you know. So
practices typically when they get out of school, right?
For the most part, Thursday nights we go, and invitation will be coming out to the youth teams again every Thursday night. We'll have one of the youth teams up there practicing with us under the lights. But Monday through Wednesdays after school, Thursday under the lights.
Monday through Wednesday, right after school, Thursday under the lights. Love Thursday under the lights, right? Get you that's exciting. And then I love how you're getting the youth involved. Is that, you know, partially just wanting to give back to the kids, getting kids excited, or is that, man, long-term vision, we're going to build a program where everybody's bought in?
Yeah, that's all of it. It's the community aspect, the family aspect, you know, wanting them to be with us, looking up to our kids for role models, but at the same time, our kids understanding that those kids are looking up to them, and just being a part of the whole, you know, Pine Richland football program.
How do you balance, you know, that if Monday through Wednesday is after school, right? So you have kids are going to school. So then after school, you're working, you know, working with the team. Thursday night, you're under the lights. That's probably going to be a 10, 11 o'clock by the time you get settled, you know, at home. Then Friday night lights. That's a Friday evening, you know, deal and all that. Saturday, we're trying to take off. You probably squeeze in a couple pokes and take a peek at some film or something. And then Sunday, you're back to the grind again. What has been a strategy for you as a father, as a husband, to be able to maintain?
I mean, a lot of it's a lot of early mornings, right, getting into work, because I'm working a full-time job.
On top of it.
The Navy Nuclear Labs, too, on top of that. So it's getting in at 5 in the morning typically.
You start at 5?
Yes, sir. To get out of there by 1:30, 2 o'clock, and then right to the stadium. and then, you know, hopefully catch some of the youth practice, whether that's football or coaching youth basketball in the winter here. And then, you know, you have a good support structure at home with the wife and the grandparents and everything that help run kids everywhere.
So you're starting at 5 a.m. What time you waking up?
I'm usually up at 3:45, 4 o'clock at the latest.
3:45,
drive to get
4
in.
o'clock in the morning.
Yes,
and
sir.
you're going, by the time you walk in the house on a Monday, Tuesday, what time you
Usually
getting home?
8:30, 9 o'clock typically.
5 to 9.
Yes, sir.
Not a 9 to 5. You're on the grind. You're on that 5 to 9
Backwards,
schedule.
for sure.
How important do you think it would be, you know, to say spousal support?
I
You know,
mean,
for somebody that wants to do what you're doing, how important?
Wouldn't be able to do it without that support at home, no doubt about it. And, you know, we live in a great community, have some great friends that help out as well, you know, with the carpool, getting the kids here and there. But tremendous amount of support at home with Maggie for sure.
Do you think people could coach it at that level and have success at that level without having support if somebody's not behind them?
Sooner or later, you're going to run out of time and not be able to put what's needed in, what's required to do that.
What do you mean by what's required?
Just all the extra time. You know, I mean, I got a coaching staff, 20-some guys, you know, and I want them to have families too. So I signed up to be the head coach, and when you're the face of the program, the man in charge, you got to go above and beyond. So just willing to do whatever's needed.
Whatever it takes.
No doubt.
Okay. And Maddie, what was, you know, you're doing a little bit of coaching and business at the same time.
Right.
Your success in business, I've been able to watch, you know, from the beginning of meeting your wife, literally from from the jump all the way till now. And I could, you know, tell you from the outside my perspective, but what is your perspective on how important in leadership, business, when you've seen people?
Yeah, of course.
You know, how important would you say that is?
I wouldn't say it's impossible to do without, but man, it would make it a whole heck of a lot harder. When you got the support, you don't have to worry about that. You know, if you heard his schedule, that's 35 to 40 hours of coaching a week.
Plus 40-hour job.
Plus a full-time.
So he's running job 80, no question.
And family. I don't know that you could balance all that with no support from home and be at your best. So shout out to Courtney, shout out to Maggie, and you know, I think that anywhere you go, you're going to hear a universal language, and most people that are successful in whatever they do, they're going to talk to you about a supportive, whether that's spouse or inner circle that they have, some sort of.
It's also to have that support at work as well. You know, I mean, I got to work for a pretty good manager and a pretty good company where that provides that flexibility as well.
Of course.
So coming into the Pine Richland program, first year we mentioned you won a state championship, started out a little rocky, you know, 1-3. We don't need to get too deep into it unless you want to, but let's just tell the audience there was a little bit of controversy. You know what I mean? A little bit of obstacles coming in, a little bit of controversy surrounding the situation, and you come in.
And you're coming into Western Pennsylvania football, where the expectation, you're not going, you know, is
like Youngstown. Like,
hey, first year controversy, you know, the expectation is winning Western PA. So, you know, that's a lot to come into.
And
so how do you navigate it? What was that like?
And that was even bigger at Pine Richland due to the recent success that the program had, and even back in the early 2000s with previous coaching staffs. But you know what Coach K did here on the football field, the success that he brought to the program. You know, there were high expectations coming in, and you know my expectations were even higher. But when you come in and you start 1-3, there's a lot of questions to be had, and you know. The wife was a little concerned that the neighborhood was going to burn the house down, but, you know, we got the ships righted, but a lot of it was building relationships with the kids. Lived in the community for 10-plus years, so I knew a lot of these guys growing up as they were coming up through the youth programs. My daughter was chairing and stuff, so I knew what we had in the team and the individuals, but had to bring it all together. And spent a lot of time the first few months just doing team activities, bonding type things, bringing everyone together.
It starts with relationships?
Yes.
You think it starts with relationships?
Making kids care about each other, not just themselves, and putting the team before themselves. I think Coach Campbell always had a shirt that said, like, big team, little me on it, you know. You need kids that don't care about their success, but the overall team success. And Coach Walton used to always say at Robert Morris as well, you know, individual success comes from the team success. So, you know, that's just the way I live my life, and I built our program.
Which strategies would you say as a coach, you know, coming in that because you've probably coached some really good athletes, you know, that maybe physically are superior. What strategies have worked, or would you suggest for people that I'm coming in and we want to have a culture of big team, little me, but at first maybe you see it's that person, as you develop that person, it's big me, little team. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, no doubt.
How do you do
that?
that? Because you're dealing with egos. You know what I mean? At that level.
I mean, I pretty much opened it up to my own family and saw how important the family environment is. You know, they've been a part of everything we did with every program we've been at, and the boys treat the kids just like brothers and sisters. But it's just, you know, getting them to understand there's so much more out there than themselves. Like, we preach a lot about the community pride, the name on the front of our jersey, not the back of our jersey, and just giving back in general.
Mm-hmm. Anything that you could think of, you know, if you don't have to tell the name, you know, like I think if you're like, hey, Simon, do you have any people that were talented in your business, but they were kind of a challenge, you know, to lead and to get bought into the team? I could think of a few. You know, which
How you look at me when
which
you
definitely weren't. You definitely weren't. I wish they all come like you, Maddie. But any strategies, you know, if there's a leader out there or a coach out there where it's like, man, I got a guy or a gal with a super talent, you know, they're a little bit better talent wise. How do I get them to bring the team together? Or they want to go to college, so they want to put stats up. They're worried about how many touchdowns they're scoring, you know, how many yards this fourth quarter. Versus, you know, run the ball. I need you to throw me the ball because I need to pat these stats a little bit.
There,
how do you manage that?
It's tough sometimes, right? There's only one ball to go around, but the more that you make that a family environment, like obviously there's different situations in every program. Like what I dealt with at Penn Hills is a little different than what I dealt with at Pine Ridge.
No doubt.
But at the same time, at the end of the day, you're dealing with 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. You know, they need loved up. Show them you love them, care about them, and they're willing to do anything you want.
Same in business.
Yeah, and you know, we try to relate it to business. So you might have someone out there that's taking over a new position, a new team. Like, what do I do, right? And I think he just hit it spot on. If you caught it, it was like he didn't go in with what the schedule's going to be. He went in with, all right, how do I build
Priority
trust?
was building relationships.
How do I build relationships with it? Which I can attest in his first year seeing him at kids' practices. You know, and he's a high school coach. He'd be at wrestling practices. He'd be at basketball practices.
Building relationships.
Talking to young kids, meeting the parents. So he was, you know, they felt
I would put
comfortable
that
with him.
under the category of when he said whatever's required. You choose to be the head man, then I'm going to do whatever's required, building relationships, getting out into the community, you know,
And
things of
that's
that
so
nature.
much more than just, you know, X's and O's coaching football. A lot of people are really good football coaches, but can they run a successful, good football program? There's a big difference there.
Yeah. And the little things of, oh man, you're already tired. I mean, you're starting at 5 o'clock in the morning. You got your own program. You got your own family, you know, all that stuff. So in between, I got a couple hours. I can go home or I could do something else. I'm choosing to go down here and talk to people in the youth programs, and I'm going to go down here and deal with see what's going on with the wrestling and stuff like that, and get your face out there and get your heart out there and get out with the people in the community. Do you see those are the things that separates, you know, it sounds, you know, I'm sure you've had great mentors and leaders and people that have impacted your life. Do you think those are the things that impact people, the difference maker in going to the next level, or not?
Yeah, I think it is, because they really show, like, you could preach all these things, but unless you're showing by example, you know, kids might not buy into what you're preaching.
Yeah. Speaking of mentors, do you have any mentors, you know, that have helped you in the game?
I mean, it started so early. I mean, in the game of football, like I said, our linebacker coach, Dan Metro, and Pete Short, our defensive coordinator at Equipa, the amount of time that they were willing to put in after practice, after lifting and film sessions, you know, opening their house to the players, or because back then you had one VHS tape, you know, so to watch film, you pass that tape around to everybody.
No doubt.
So we all got together at a coach's house. It ain't like nowadays where you pick up your phone, you watch game film right on your phone.
Right.
So, you know, those guys put a lot of time in to invest in children of that community, you know, and that's what we talk about all the time, investing in our future. You know, then you get to Robert Moore's and you got 3 NFL players, coaches in Joe Walton, Dan Radakovich, and Joe Banaszak. I mean, them guys were amazing. And the staff that they assembled.
What did you learn from them? Like what couple things? I'm sure it's a ton of things. If you had to say, man, I can summarize. Let me give you two, three things.
I think going to Robert Morris, being coached by them guys. I've always been coached by Western PA style coaches. And it was hard nosed, tough grit, grinding every day. We talked about the physical mentality on defense, hitting everything that moves. Offensively, we're going to be a powerful, explosive offense. And when teams get out of games with us, they're going to know who they played. And, that's how I live my life. That's how I coach my team. That's how I run my program.
Love it. So getting back to your start, I think there's a lot of wisdom to be got, from that. 1-3 probably wasn't your expectations. Coming in, you mentioned like, hey, my wife was joking around, they ain't going to burn our house down. High expectations in Western Pennsylvania, high expectations at PR.
Pressure that comes with
a lot of pressure. You 1-3, you're going in the next game, you're I can't go 1-4. How did you manage the mental aspect of because you had to have thoughts that creep in. You kick them out, but a thought that creeps in of fear, negativity, stress, worry, things of that nature.
We always preach, let's focus on what matters in this locker room, the opinions of those in this locker room. And, we
blocking out the noise.
Blocking out the noise, like people say, we leaned on the leadership in the locker room. Yeah, we made some changes, but it still took some time for maybe some of those people to buy into what we were selling, But at the end of the day, as we hit stride and started rolling, maybe the one or two guys that were a little questioning what we were doing started to buy in. Maybe
start racking up a couple wins.
Started blocking out some noise maybe that was coming from home or something like that as well.
Yep.
Was the vision kind of day to day what we need to do? Is that what the conversations were, week to week, mixed in with where we're going for the year? Or would you try to keep them in the moment? Or was there coming in, hey, this is what we're going to do this year?
We knew what expectation was, where we wanted to get. We talked about that early in the season, and then put.
How do you keep them going? We have high expectations, but we start out 1-3.
Yeah, you talk about those expectations, and then talk about, hey, now what's preventing us from getting there? At this point, we're 1-3. Why are we 1-3 and not 3-1 or 4-0 or whatever that may be? What's preventing us from getting there and get those things corrected? We had a lot of varsity young guys, first-year varsity players out there last year that made a lot of mental mistakes early on that was costing us maybe a 3-1 start compared to a 1-3 start. So, a lot of film work, a lot of film sessions, and just a lot of open and honest dialogue.
How do you get them zoned in? Like even right now, we're coming off a loss, right? Life. Sometimes you got to come off a loss. How do you get people zoned in? I think that's a difference. Some people, they have a difficult time coming off of a loss or coming off of a couple losses. Which strategies or how do you get the team back settled in your mind of, how do you get people zoned in after a loss?
It's this past loss was kind of humbling for these guys, because I told them it's a new year, new team. We're coming off a state championship.
Everybody wants a piece.
Mark's on us now. Everyone wants a piece. We played a really good team that we hung in there with. But, a loss is a loss at the end of the day. And how we get these things corrected and change the mindsets of what some of our players are thinking on the field, right? We could draw everything up that we want, but we can't go out there and actually execute it for them. So trying to get in their minds of what they were thinking on certain plays to get that stuff corrected.
Getting in the players' minds,
yes, sir,
as to what they're thinking.
Yeah, that way we
to get those things corrected.
Yep, it's kind of like a roadmap of what you need to do out there.
A mentor of mine and like a father to me, probably know the name Jim Tressel.
Yes, sir.
And so, Coach, he always he preaches and teaches a lot. WAYT. What are you thinking? And he said it's important. When I asked you the question of, man, if you had to summarize, if I could write a book on all the things that Coach Tressel has taught me, but if I had to summarize a couple, this would be in the top 5, that I learned the WAYT of always knowing and trying to get to learn and know what your people are thinking and getting them open to tell you. If they fear you, either way they're thinking it. He would tell me, listen, whether they tell you or they don't tell you, either way they're thinking it. So if you don't find out what they're thinking, you don't have an ability for them to be impacted by what you want, the way that you want them to think, or they may be able to impact you, the way that you're thinking if you know what they're thinking. But you got to create that format where they're open, or at least someone on your staff can get a feel for what they're thinking.
No doubt. We always talk about communications being a two-way street. And, a lot of time there's a lot of coaches, it's a one-way communication where they're not listening to what the player's actually saying. So,
Maddie, you're great at that. I feel like we're a good balance.
Yeah, right.
That way. I feel like you get people to open up, and your approach is it's a little smoother. Sometimes my delivery could be a little rougher in matter of fact, and
all
I think
all good intentions. What you're coming from.
Is it? Do you think it's easier to coach coming off of a loss? And I'm going to ask you both this. Do you think it's easier, Coach LaDon? Do you think it's easier to come off of, because Tress always used to say also, success can be a bad teacher. It's people start feeling themselves, after some victories. Do you think it's easier to coach coming off a loss, or easier to coach coming off a win?
Oof.
I mean, I think a lot of times coming off a loss, our players are more locked in to what we're saying as far as, how we're going to go about business, what we're going to do, what we're going to change. Whereas a win, especially a win against certain teams, that's meaningless. It doesn't do much but give you a win, a check mark in the win column, but it's not doing much to really improve your status of playing abilities.
So ears tend to be a little bit more open coming off a loss.
Yes, sir.
So how do you coach then coming off of wins? Because you rattled off, if I do the math, 1-3, you end 13-3. That means you rattle off 10 straight wins. So you're on win 5, you're on win 6, you're on win 7. How are you keeping them locked in at that point?
I think you said it earlier.
Or even undefeated teams, because you said you went undefeated. You went undefeated. That got to be difficult. At least they had a taste of loss.
It's the little things, right? The little things that we focus on, the little things that we need to get corrected, the room for improvement, because we never play a perfect game. You're never out there perfect. You strive for perfection. But, 16-0 was perfection back in 18, but there were still a lot of little things that we had to correct and adjust along the way to continue to improve and be better.
Maddie, easier coming off a win or coming off a loss?
I got to give a politician answer. I think it's easier to coach when you have a winning culture, multiple wins in a row. If there's multiple losses in a row, I think it gets harder to coach that because
the buy-in.
Because
you need a win.
Right?
You need a win.
You got to show their confidence. And so what do you do as a coach to get their confidence up? Probably little wins, little victories as much as you can. The biggest thing you're dealing with wins is keeping them focused for probably that week and what the overall bigger picture is and bringing them back to earth. But I would choose a winning culture.
Yeah.
I would choose coaching coming off wins.
Yep.
It's definitely easier.
Right.
But, I mean, like you talked about, your expectations for the year. We get out there, we talk about win the play, win the series, win the drive, win the quarter, win the half, win the game.
Staying in the moment.
Break it down.
Staying in the moment.
What are we doing now?
Win.
Yeah.
What's important now, right?
So
I think, not to keep going back, and this wasn't part of my plan, but these talking to a football coach and all that just brings me to pretty much, most of my 30s is, I don't know if there's been too much bigger of an influence on my life than Jim Tressel. So it's hard for me to come up with things because a lot of the things weren't my own. These were things that I was taught, learned, and things that have been pounded into my head. I remember him telling me when he first got to Youngstown State, and they were like 1-8 or 0-8, and he's trying to change this culture.
Right.
And they played, I believe, now don't quote me, I'd have to go back and see, but I believe it was Akron, and Akron was D1. They were 1AA, Youngstown State, and I think they played Akron. He's like, that was like one of the turning points. We went 1-8 or 2-8 or something like that, but that was the buy-in moment where you got to get a win, and that win started to get the belief, and the belief started to create the momentum, for everything else. So I think that's, I heard you say it, we're 1-3. I think once we got that win, people started to buy in a little bit more, a couple more wins, people start buying in more, and things of that nature. What's it like dealing with parents? You're dealing with kids, that's people's most prized possession. emotions get high. You know, I think Maddie's quoted, you know, to our organization, you say when emotions get high, intelligence gets low. You know, when people start overreacting, you know what I mean? Maddie, I think you're the one that brought that up. And Maddie, he coined the phrase here, you know, when emotions high, intelligence gets low. You know, everybody gets all worked up, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. How have you, you know, been able to, or what is it like, you know, dealing with parents, because there's only one ball,
Yeah.
right? And only so many minutes in a quarter, and it matters to you. You care. You're in the community, you know, things of that nature. We don't want the house burnt down, right? So how do you manage that as a coach?
I mean, a lot of the times it's the parents that start that from the background, right? It's never the kids really. But I mean, I have a parent meeting very early in the season. You know, I tell them they're attached to one individual on the team, maybe two if they got a brother. But I'm attached to 85, 90 individuals on the team, and I care about the team in general, not just emotionally attached to one person, you know. For the most part, it's been pretty good. Never had – I don't want to say I never had any issues, but I have had minimal issues with parents related to issues with how we conduct business. And then when you go on and you start rattling them off, winning, a lot of that noise goes away.
Yeah.
Well, you know, to help with you, what I've noticed is proactively he handled it. You know, I think of a situation last year before he was here. Two of the youth teams went at each other in a Super Bowl. They both made the Super Bowl. And I think there was some unprofessional.
Yeah.
Two Pine teams?
Non-adult.
Two of our Pine youth teams
against
made the
each other.
Super Bowl, and they had to play each other. Yeah, because they split the teams.
Yeah.
Which is great because
Yeah.
you got two teams playing in the Super Bowl. But,
right.
you know, it's
And I think things got maybe a little too heated from the parent level, you know. And I don't know the specifics of it, but
I know there were some feelings hurt.
Yeah,
you know,
long story. There was a bad taste at the end of it, and him knew this year. It was happening again. They were going to the Super Bowl last year. I'm sorry, 2 years ago is whenever it happened. Last year they went to the Super Bowl, the same thing, and he proactively sent an email out to every parent in all of Pine Richland sports, from youth to things.
Now this is coming from the head coach of the high school program.
Brand new.
That's huge.
To every
That don't
parent.
happen
No.
in every community.
About the previous year and how that can affect kids and what kind of behavior to have this year and how to be a leading example to people. And he don't know everybody in the organization yet. So well written, well thought out, proactively, and sure enough, it went off and everybody was behaved and it was a good taste. I mean, if that doesn't show the leadership, you know, coming in, man, you know, I was very impressed by it.
It's kind of like, you know, there's a winner and a loser, but at the same time, with both Pine Richland teams in the Super Bowl, Pine Richland's a winner. You know what I mean?
Right,
And
right.
my son was playing in the game for a team, and the team that lost. And, you know, sometimes life's hardest lessons are learned during losses. And,
Amen.
You know, we talked to some of them players on that team, and they rebounded, you know. But there were no hard feelings left between parents after that game. Everyone was, you know, happy for Pine Richland.
I think you hit it on the head with spotting that it was proactive. You said, I have a parents meeting, you know, proactively. I think that's key. I bet you not a lot of people do that, you know, proactively. I know what we've tried to instill was, you know, if anybody's coming in, you know, I can't do this with hundreds of people that work with us, but, you know, as people come in, sometimes if it's a special scenario, I'll meet with the spouse because the spouse becomes more like the parent. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
So I got to meet with the spouse and try to make sure they're on board for what's getting ready to transpire, you know, in the amount of work and the amount of effort, you know, that goes in sometimes in business is a lot like, you know, sports. You know, I wasn't gifted, you know, from a physical size standpoint. You know, I tell people I was always good, but I was never great, but I was small. So my first year at Mercyhurst, played Division II, I got redshirted. You know, I think that transition year is probably the toughest for people. You know, that's when you go from, all right, I worked my way up. Now I was the man
You're
here.
the big dog.
Right now, I'm
Nobody
coming back
again.
down. I'm
Yeah.
fifth on the depth chart. You know, and the two guys above me are sophomore and junior, and they're both good. You know, so it's like, and you want to transfer, and you know, you're thinking all these thoughts, and then you get redshirted. You know, I tell people when you get redshirted though, you do all the work, and then some, but you don't get playing time. You know, so that's like you're in business and you got to do all the work, but you're not getting the results, you know, immediately. You got to be bought into the process, you know, that it requires and stuff like that. And so tell us, you know, how much of your mindset, you know, I know, you know, anywhere that I go, people, you know, no matter where I'm at, you know, I rock the Youngstown gear, Youngstown State gear. I never forget where I came from. It's played such a big role and a big part of my life, you know, and people see me in a suit, you know, and stuff like that. But they, you know, people that know me know I'm more comfortable not in a suit. And I was blue collar, you know, raised by blue collar people. And so I know the role that where you come up in the community and all that stuff could play a huge role, you know, in your life. What role do you think? I know the tradition, you know, of Aliquippa from a sports standpoint, hard-nosed standpoint, reminds me a lot of Youngstown.
No doubt about it. Old steel mill type, blue collar.
Yep. So how talk to people that don't know, you know, not all our listeners are in Pittsburgh. Talk to them about how could you describe Aliquippa to them, and what role has that played in your life?
I mean, you know, there's a book out called Playing Through the Whistle, a great book that portrays Aliquippa, and it goes back to the 50s, 60s, 70s, everything was like it. It's a big melting pot, you know. African-Americans, whites, Asians, everyone living together. No one saw color. No one saw ethnicity or anything, you know. We loved each other. It was tough, though. I mean, I was growing up there at a time that the steel mills were closed, so a lot of people, it was like fight or flight.
No doubt.
A lot of people were leaving. A lot of the white people were especially leaving, getting out of there, moving to better communities. And then they come back thinking when you play them that they're better than you or something like that. But, you know, it was a daily grind. We looked at athletics as an opportunity to improve the situation, to get out of there. You know, I was fortunate I had two parents at home. My dad drove trucks for a living. My mom stayed home, was a stay-at-home mom, taking care of 4 kids growing up, you know. So it was hard. We lived in
Where were you at in the 4?
I'm a twin, so we were the older brother,
okay.
2 twins, and then a younger brother. But shit, I mean, we lived in a 3-bedroom house, you know. I take my kids back to my parents' house now. Like, wait, you shared a bedroom with Uncle Jess? Yeah, on bunk beds, you know what I mean? So, you know, you always want better for your children, and you want to provide more for your kids, and you do more for your kids. But, you know, that's humbling to them as well, you know, everything. Shit, we give our kids everything nowadays, right? But they need to know that you're going to appreciate and respect what you get, and you're going to earn what you get, you know.
Yep.
You go do your schoolwork, do really good in school, do really good academically, athletically, and we'll take care of things, you know what I mean?
And when you meet his children, they're all super respectful, positive, good body language, nice, make you feel good. So hats off, man. All 3 of the kids are awesome to be around.
You know, Maddie, your dad, I think, was the president of the union.
Oh, yeah.
You know, was in the union forever. And, you know, your family has that
duplex
background, you know, also.
Yep.
So don't get it twisted.
No,
right?
It's like,
don't let the pink shirt fool you.
How do you install that into these kids that are growing up different in a different, you know, era, community, call it what you will. How do you install that into them without them having to go through those tough?
Yeah, how do you instill toughness?
Growing up tough.
You know, that happens naturally sometimes in an environment that may not produce that as naturally.
I mean, it's the day and age of entitlement by a lot of children, especially in some of the communities that we're living in now, right? They don't get what they want to quit. From an athletic side of the point, or we'll make it better. We'll leave. I don't make this travel team. I'll leave and start my own travel team over here, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, what are you teaching the kids, right?
Yep.
I mean, college nowadays got the transfer portal, so college athletes aren't holding their end of the bargain. You know, they talk about, coaches leaving this and that, but no one's seeing hard work pay off anymore. If they don't get what they think they deserve, they're automatically leaving, you know. It makes it tougher and tougher.
So how do you coach amidst that? How do you raise kids amongst that?
I mean, I'm dealing with it now on the team with certain kids that seniors think they should be playing, but they're not starting or this or that. And it's like, hey, sometimes when you work hard, you still don't get what you want. You know what I mean? You still got to grind every day. Or if you get in that position, that don't mean you're going to keep that position. So it's a lot of effort, a lot of work, and instilling the right mindset in these kids that, hey, I got to go out every day and compete.
I think that's impossible to avoid. I mean, powerhouse organization, state winner, you're still going to have it. Nothing, no team, no business, no world, no family is going to be perfect. And probably the stronger the relationships, you know, that you got, the little bit easier that becomes. But
and you talk about, like, we're not just building high school athletes. Like, we're trying to build young men.
Character.
yeah,
Eventually.
At pivotal moments.
Good husbands, good fathers, and everything else. So, you know, time's going to get tough. You're going to be out there in the workforce one day when you're not going to get that promotion. What are you going to do? Quit your job?
Yep.
Leave your family out to hang?
No
or
doubt.
you're going to go back to work?
I try
and
to
grind?
not be too judgmental, but I'm going to give a little secret out, you know, right now of when I meet people in business and they tell me, I played at so-and-so college, this sport, whatever it was. I played here, I played there. And I always follow it up by all 4 years, just a pulse check, because I know that not just the 1 year, you know, or just the 2 years. And again, you can't judge every situation because you don't know exactly, you know, what happened. But definitely my antennas go up if I hear you started and you didn't finish, because
no doubt.
I know what it takes. And it don't matter if it's D3 or D1. Matter of fact, the lower the division, probably the more grit. And so I look at it and I'm thinking, okay, if this person played the whole time, stayed the whole time, they probably battled through some injuries. They probably battled through some coaches they didn't like. They probably battled through, maybe they didn't immediately start, you know, or these moments without giving up, these things that show. Now, there's always different exceptions to the rule, things pop up, but that's always a question, you know, for me when I ask is like, did you play all 4 years? Because I know that the enticement to not play all 4 years, you know, because I had it. You know, I had, oh, man, I ain't playing, I ain't starting, I could just go back. I can go to Mount Union and transfer right now. I go start right now. You know, those feelings versus like, all right, I'm number 5 on the depth chart. I'm 5'7". 2 dudes ahead of me are dogs. One's a D1 transfer, 6'2". Like, okay, how we going to figure this one out? You know, and the grit that comes from that process of daily, you know, not knowing when your chance is going to happen, but when your chance does happen, you got to go out there like Tom Brady and make the most of it. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
Because of the preparation. That's when they say luck meets when preparation meets opportunity. You know what I mean? So I think that what would you say is your favorite traits of players that you've coached, or maybe traits that stand out, traits of the greats? You know, outside of. You can't coach speed. Yeah, you can't teach size.
You can't teach some of those things, right? But I mean, just the grit, the physicality, commitment level, and it's just like we say.
What do you mean commitment
we
level?
We always say it's not just about your commitment on the field, right? What you're going to do above and beyond the football field or the basketball court or the baseball diamond.
Like what?
That you're going to do outside to promote the program, promote the name, show like. Because I tell the kids all the time, like living in the community, you know. Yeah. People can't wait to call me when a football player does something wrong. You know what I mean? So like,
yeah, I do know.
I'm one of the first ones. I'm one of the first ones to get a call when a football player's out in the community doing something wrong.
No one's blogging positives, right?
But I mean, when we do so much positivity out in the community, now they're starting to realize, and hey, I'm getting messages now all the time about positivity in the community, and you know, representing the team, the school. Because we talk about it all, you know, represent the team, the school, you represent your parents, you represent me out there. And I don't want anyone having anything negative towards my name to say. So, you know, you talk about character, high character people. Coach Campbell used to always say, you know, character is who you are when no one's watching. And, you know, those are just some of the things that we try to instill in our players.
So the toughness in character,
yep.
You would say. What things show toughness to you?
Some of them things like you talked about, like when you're second, third on the depth chart, what are you going to do? Are you going to hang, keep competing, go out there every day? We're at a bigger school here at Pound Richland, right? So we might have some guys that are one-way players. Are you going to get on a scout team when so if you're on varsity offense, are you going to give our varsity defense a look when the scout team's out? It's going to get yourself better, get you better, get everyone better.
Unselfishness.
Or are you going to sit there on the sideline like, I'm a varsity starter, I'm not going to help them guys out, you know? So it's just that buy-in, that commitment, those are things we talk about.
How about you? Traits of people you're leading in business. You lead a large group of people. Traits of the best to you.
Traits of the best. I think probably coachability, humility. There's so many. Work ethic, grind, loyalty. I mean, hard to pick one. I see these going the extra mile. I see a lot of these kids show up at youth practices and help. He runs a youth camp that helps. So, besides talent, I think obviously, if you're a coach, you can't ignore talent. Like you look at a kid, and,
No doubt.
but talent doesn't always just auto give you a good team culture, right? So it's like, what kids, whether there's talent or not, are going to help bring my unit together. And that is going the extra mile. They're vocal. They're cheering you're on it, whether that's sports or business.
You mentioned culture. Like, you're great at culture. I'd have to imagine winning as much as you've won, you've had to be great at facilitating culture.
Yeah.
How do you both, would you suggest, what's the best way of bringing different personality traits together? You have people of different walks of life. You have people with different personalities, getting them to be cohesive, and things of that nature. How do you do that?
It's about building that relationship with everybody and making sure people understand who everyone else is. I don't got to build a relationship with the kid as well as, having the kids build relationships with each other, understanding their obstacles, understanding their background, their beliefs, and everything else. So,
how do you do that?
A lot of
anything intentionally?
Just some team bonding stuff. We're doing different types of activities when we're going out, and we pair them up with different groups because even though we're all part of the football team, there's our separate groups, separate cliques in that football team where these guys live in the same neighborhood.
No doubt.
Or these guys, their families aren't as
So you
wealthy
split
as
them
these
up
families.
and get them with different people?
We try to interact with different kids each time we do something.
Okay. How about you?
Yeah, I think it's impossible to probably have a good team without a good team culture. So he just mentioned it with the relationships. To follow up, I think maybe setting what an expectation is for the good culture. What do you expect from a team? And making sure that you're giving them individual attention and what their role is as an individual and building them up. And then how does that also fit into the team and the team culture? You'd hate to concentrate on what is bad culture.
Yep.
But you need to patrol it if it happens from an individual. Like, hey, this is against our expectation. This is against what the team culture. Where it gets very hard is when you have a talented player that continuously goes against what's good for the culture. So cheering your teammates on. I mean, there's so many small specifics that you could do, from relationships to cheering people on to body language on the field to
You're
what
big
happens,
on body language.
what happens when a play goes wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure you don't want them yelling at each other on the field doing this and whatnot. That's going to hurt the team culture. So, I mean, it's a constant patrol. It's a constant patrol.
You mentioned, you got to have talent. You got to have skill. You got to have players. You got to have players.
Yes.
How do you manage egos? People that have an ego. I mean, you got to have some people that have come across your path that got big egos, right?
Yeah.
How do you manage the ego? What is the strategy? If you could think of, all right, here's a strategy for if I got a player that's talented, they get results, big ego. You know what I mean? Unhealthy, just too big of an ego. What do you do?
Sometimes that's tough to manage, especially like when you say this guy's probably one of our best players.
They're tough.
But it's a lot of, like Matt talked about building that team culture, that relationships. We hopefully start to chop egos down where they care about others before themselves. We're really big on forget about me, I love you, the family type thing. And it's just put others before yourselves. You're going to have egos sooner or later. You just got to put them in check before they become too much of a problem.
In the beginning.
Yes, sir.
How about you, Maddie? How do you manage?
Yeah, constantly patrolling,
egos?
constant and preaching about it. Where anybody got to know, from the NFL down to a Pee Wee football program or a business, that no individual is bigger than the program. No individual is bigger than the team, coach included, to boss, to a new trainee. So you just have to know that your actions, that could be consequences. And what's tough about a coach is, would they bench a player like that? You know, and over
At
the
what
years,
point do you bench a player or cut a player with an ego that could be a little bit toxic, in your opinion?
I mean, once it starts to become detrimental to the team, you know, other players will see it and may make comments to that individual or to the coaching staff. And when it starts to become detrimental to the team, where the focus is more on that player's behavior than what we're trying to focus on as a team, then it's time to maybe let that player go.
Yeah.
But hopefully you're doing things in the
Stinks to
meantime.
do.
If you're doing more good
Stinks
than
to do.
bad,
Yep.
and it hasn't killed the whole culture, it's just an ego issue we're working with, but it hasn't killed our team culture, then we can groom through that.
Sometimes you compromise a little and work through things, but once it becomes detrimental to
A
what
little
you're
bit more
trying to do.
patience. They put 4 touchdowns on the board.
Yeah, I think of Jimmy Johnson. He cut the backup QB for sleeping during trainees. Tapped him on he cut him, and they were like, "What would you do if it was Troy Aikman sleeping during the film?" And he was like, "Well, I'd walk over, I'd
Wake him up.
tap him on the shoulder, say, hey, watch." And they were like, he's like, "It's good to be Troy Aikman." So yeah, you know, when you got some talent, yeah, you want to give them a little leadway. Everybody, you know, if you got somebody that, look, it is what it is. It's business and it's sports. If you got someone that doesn't have the talent level and they're a problem, it's an easier decision.
Yep.
Someone without, and you'll have that. People without talent.
But as
that
soon
have
as
an
you
ego-
get up to those next levels, you know, it's not just talent that takes you there. So there's a certain point
The
that
higher you
talent's
go.
gonna catch up, and now you got to do something else. And you know, varsity football tends to get there, but once you get to that next level in college, now it's there because there's someone just as
100%.
talented as you that's willing to do everything else that you're not. So
Coaching styles. I think I've learned, you know, that everybody has their own coaching style. You know, I think what works for one doesn't work for the next. How would you describe your coaching style? Are you more in your face, passionate, or more like chill, quiet?
yeah, I'm kind of more chilled, relaxed when it comes to coaching outside of Fridays. Like, I'm intense on Fridays and get after it on Fridays for sure. But during the week, I mean, I'm more of a mental type guy. Hey, we need to know what we're doing, how we're going to adjust things like that. The physicality part, you know, we're in there every day grinding. We probably hit more at camp than any team in PA. Now, there's limits on how much you could hit in the season after camp comes out. But, you know, we're still in full pass probably a lot more than most teams.
So, but energy level wise, or, you know, praise in public, reprimand in private. Sounds good, right? What do you feel about that? Like, are you open to public criticism sometimes of players on the team in practice, you know, stuff like that?
So I would say my style has morphed over time and changed.
Of course.
As a younger dude, I was the high energy guy and in everybody's face, screaming, high intensity. As I got into head coach, you know, I got guys that do that for me now. I'm more of a guy, hey, we're going to talk. I want, like I talked about earlier, I want to get in your mindset, see what you were thinking and how we could correct that thinking. So much more of a mental guy now than in your face, high energy type dude.
What coaches do you see that you admire in the game, be it college, pro, anybody that stands out to you as far as coaches that you would aspire to be like, or that you say, man, I take things from that, or this is what I like about that player?
Yeah,
that
I guess, I mean, Coach Belichick is probably like one of the dudes that I look up to, and he really doesn't change who he is either. You know, he always got the cutoff hoodie on. He's just him, but he's a very mental, intelligent dude when it comes to the game. And a lot of the coaches that he brings on his staff are that same way.
You know that one of the keys for Belichick, right? You know where he was bloodline his dad was from?
Know that.
Youngstown.
Okay.
Struthers. We'll claim him.
We got Keystone Oak,
Struthers.
Georgetown. We'll relate it all.
We got to squeeze it. We got to squeeze him in.
We'll relate it all
But
back
his dad
like-
was from Struthers. I don't know if you're
Okay.
familiar with
Yeah,
the
yeah,
area,
yeah.
but it's right outside of Youngstown. Maddie, what do you think everybody has? Do you think people have different leadership styles? Like what works for one person won't work for somebody else? And what traits have you pulled from leaders in your experience and
1,000%.
things?
I'm going to slaughter the saying, but it's like something about authentic version of you is way better than a fake version of someone else, basically. So, like, even just in art, your style is completely different than mine. I can't be you. So I just try to look at every trait that I admire, whether it's delivery or something, and just make it my own and just be me and deliver it. And at the same time, I'm always self-auditing myself. Like, okay, what are you good at? What do you need to, you're not good at delivering this. You need to be better at that. And just making it my own. And I just watching him come into the community and haven't seen him change. The guy I met a couple of years ago at a party, and same style, same delivery. You come in a community, it could be easy to start playing a role, acting a certain way, I guess. And he's, same. I would like to think if somebody met me 14 years ago, I'm same as then, but just a better version of myself, not a fake version, if that makes sense.
I'm grateful that you're coming on the Grindcast. I know how. I mean, we're mid-season coming off a loss on a Monday, and we got you over here in the studio. Says a lot, man. We really appreciate your time. Wrap up couple more questions. I'll get you out of here. We got to go get a victory here. What do you want the personality of your team to be?
So I still preach that Western PA style football, right? So that personality, we're going to be good individuals, high character people, but once we get on the field, we're going to flip that switch, and we're going to hit everything that moves. So, I mean, that's kind of like a silent assassin.
I love it.
So
I love it. I like it. You mentioned it already in the beginning. Do you have a routine, a daily routine or anything in season or any type of routines that you're following?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much it's a day-to-day grind. Like I said, I'm up early for the most part, in the work, out of work, the football. Got to get some kids' activities in, whether it's their practices or, off to a late dinner. Eat dinner 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then in season I'm probably getting another hour worth of filming at least.
Another hour worth of film?
Yeah,
After?
Once I'm at home, yeah.
Okay.
And then the amount of emails and text messages that I get, I'm kind of glued to the phone in season, and the wife lets me know about it sometimes. So we try to put that away on Saturdays.
Saturday's the day.
You don't want to mess with Maggie either.
Saturday's the day.
Yeah.
So I like it. So I think, wrapping up, what advice would you give to players and coaches? Players, they want to play for you, or they just want to play that. I want to start, I want to play for a high caliber team. Other than talent, what would you tell those players? This is what it requires in my experience.
I mean, I think it's just all about that commitment and the daily grind.
So describe a high level of commitment versus a low level of commitment in a daily grind.
So commitment-wise, you got guys that come into the locker room 5 minutes before the lift session, leave the locker room 5 minutes after practice. You got guys that are in there 25, 30 minutes before a lift session, getting some additional stretch, getting some maybe PT from the trainers, maybe with our yoga coach stretching out, getting ready before we go into the weight room.
Yoga coaches in Pine Richland?
Wow.
Dang.
They didn't have that at KO.
KO guy. I coached him at KO.
Well, we had
back
yoga
in,
coaches.
No, I coached him back in 2009, 2008.
You were the yoga coach?
No, not me. But then, and then after practice, they're there for another half hour, 45 minutes. May I ask to get another, hey, outside of the team film session, coach, can we get on the board for another half hour? Can we get another film session in? Putting chairs up in the locker room that are left out. Every day we got a routine. I got like 3 or 4 seniors. circle the locker room, making sure chairs are all the same way in the locker, making sure helmets are facing the same way. Just the little things, you know. We talk about this is our house, taking care of our house. They walk outside, there might be a piece of paper on the ground.
Right.
Are you going to pick it up or are you going to walk by it?
Yep.
You know, those are all the little things that go into the commitment to big team, little me.
Coaches, you know, I see players, you know, like in our business, you know, I have people that get worked up because they put a lot of time into somebody and maybe they don't make it. You know, they don't stick. I always tell them, I said, well, Nick Saban has 100% turnover. He loses everybody. So how do you manage, you know, you do all this work with the player, right? Freshman year, ego, build them up, teaching them the game, finally got them rolling, got them rocking, they're gone. You know, they go to college, we got to start that, you know, whole process back over again. How do you manage the, like, you have 100% turnover?
Yeah, it's a cycle for sure. And, you know, I think the staff that I assembled is just like business, you know, the employees that you hire.
Got your core.
I got my guys the staff that I assembled. It sucks because none of them really want to go on to be a head coach. I know I got stability with them. Excuse me. But are they going to get content in their position and say, you know, I'm doing the same thing over and over again?
How do you do that? So you got a loyal person. You got somebody that's been rolling with you, okay? Yep. Coaching. They're coaching with you. They don't want to be a head coach, but they're getting content in their position. But they've been with you for a while. You love them. Yep. What do you do?
I go out and challenge these guys every day. You know, what are we going to do to get better today? I challenge the coaches just like I challenge the kids. Hey, this kid, bring him up, get him ready. You know,
have you ever had to get rid of somebody that got content?
I mean, sometimes in the profession you got to get rid of guys. You know, I had to get rid of a couple coaches last season. Excuse me. Got rid of a coach or two last season after a 13-3 state championship season because
after winning,
I don't think their belief and mentality was in the same direction as the programs.
Takes a lot of guts.
Couple years before that, you know, at Penn Hills, you know, we had some changeover in staff after another state championship team. But, you know.
How do you do that after you're just like, man, I care about these people. You spend so much time with them.
Relationships.
That's tough.
At the end of the day.
What do you do?
At the end of the day, it's the program expectation, right? This is my program, how I want my program to be run and what the expectations are.
So are you okay if they don't like you after that?
Sometimes you lose a friend or two, but at the end of the day, I always say I got enough friends anyways, right? But at the end of the day, I made that commitment taking this position, and I'm going to do what's best for this program. And sometimes I may go against some of my beliefs because it's for the betterment of this program.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what it is.
Last question to a player or to a coach, excuse me. What does it take? You know, they see now multiple state championships, you know, must be nice. Wish I was you, you know, living in a nice community, winning. You got all this stuff, but you're like, man, it was a grind. I started over here, and this is what people don't see. What are the things that you think an aspiring coach needs to hear that they don't see in you that took you to get to where you currently are right now?
I think the big thing is consistency, right? When I was at Shaler, we won 2 games in 3 years. But I challenged my staff every week to come in with a game plan and to prepare our kids the best that we could. Now, I didn't do anything different than we did at Shaler versus Penn Hills or Pound Richard. So that comes to talk about you got some athletes now, you got some players. But how hard it was to show up to week when you're not seeing those results. But how can I challenge them this week to continue to invest and put the time and the effort in to getting our group ready, you know, because at 2-30 or whatever my record was coming out of Shaler, there were a lot of doubters out there. Like, hey, this guy's coming to Penn Hills now.
Head coach? You went right into head coach?
I was head coach of Shaler, too.
No, but at Penn Hills, they took you right as the head after coach. 2-30?
Yeah.
Somebody was smart.
But there was
smart.
There was a belief in, you know, when I went into that interview process, who I was as an individual, and I was a man of my word. Everything I mentioned during that interview process, I held up my end of the bargain, you know. and bringing that team together, bringing the community involved, caring about the kids, you know, bringing role models around the kids and all that good stuff. So it's just consistency in what you're doing. Yeah, you got to get on the right coaching staff. You got to get yourself around the right individuals on that staff, because collectively as a group is what you need to succeed. One good coach with a couple bad coaches isn't going to have success. So it's consistency on that staff.
Haters, naysayers, 2-30, 1-3, whatever. How do you deal with the noise or naysayers or people that talk bad about you or what you got going on?
It's kind of like, you know, horse race. You know, the horses wear the blinders. We won't worry about them people outside. Now, outside of the locker room, people can say what they want. I don't care about them. You know, they don't impact me. They're not going to impact who I am. I'm not going to change who I am or what I do because of them. And a lot of that was instilled in me growing up. We had so many haters about the Aliquippa community, you know, people from other communities thinking they were better than us, just as individuals and people, you know, not athletically. But, you know, we just always blocked those haters out and just went about our business. And
Love
then
it.
just let them hate on us. Go ahead.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you both for your time today. Both of you have a lot of influence, you know, over a lot of people. And, man, I'm grateful to get to know you, Coach. Congratulations on all your success.
Sure.
Maddie, grateful to have you as a part of my life, man.
Of course.
Anytime I'm around you is a good day. And so, you know, Coach, you know, wrapping up, man, I'm hearing 80 hours a week. You know, people don't get what it requires. 80 hours a week, up at 5 o'clock in the morning. They say you can't do it all. This man is working, has a big time job as a head coach of a high school program that has high expectations. You got highest expectations of yourself as a father. You're in the community and you're doing it all. And it sounds like the secret is you got to get up early. And he said grind more than I say grind in the Grindcast room. So this is perfect to have you in the Grindcast room. We really appreciate you and anybody in the area. Let's get behind Coach John LaDon at PR. And man, I appreciate having you around in the community and appreciate having you up here today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us in another episode of The Grind. Get ready. It's a new day.